Differentiate between physical and chemical changes. Physical versus chemical changes. Let's first talk about what a physical change is. This is a change in form without changing identity. And one way that I like to look at it is that the name stays the same. So, for example, if you had an ice cube, frozen water, you could melt that. Could you refreeze it? Yes, you could. So, all you've done is just a phase change there. You would still call it H2O, you would still call it water, whether it's in the solid form or whether it's in the liquid form. So the properties of that compound H2O, they're going to remain the same. A chemical change, this is when you have a chemical reaction and you do have a change in identity. So what you start with and what you end with are different. What you start with are the reactants. So these are the substances that react. So these are your beginning compounds, your beginning elements, whatever you're trying to do. Your products after the reactants react, we have new products, and those products will have completely different physical and chemical properties from the reactants that they were formed from. Signs of a physical change. So there might be a new shape. So maybe it's ripped or cut up, um, a new size. So we could take something again and cut it up. We also could have a new state of matter. We've already talked about that. And again, the big thing is that the substance is the same. You can still call it the same name. Signs of a chemical change. So there will be an unexpected change in color. There will be a change in odor, perhaps, or maybe there's a formation of a gas. So there's something that is maybe coming out of your reactants or it's bubbling up. Formation of precipitate is also a sign of a common chemical change. So if you take two clear solutions and pour them together and you end up with a bright red solid substance in your container, that solid substance that formed is called a precipitate, and that is a sign of a chemical change. Also, a change in light or heat. For example of this, if you ever use those little hot hands, little packets to keep your hands warm in the wintertime, when you open up the package, they tell you to shake it a little bit. And what you're doing is you're introducing oxygen into the package. So inside the package are iron filings, and those iron filings are very fine and they will react with oxygen and they will form um, iron oxide, which is basically rust. So that process of the iron reacting with the oxygen produces a lot of heat. And that's why there's a little mesh bag that those iron filings are in. So it allows the the oxygen to get in through it so that the reaction can take place. And the end result is you have warm hands through the heat that results as part of those reactants being formed. So let's practice whether this is a physical or a chemical change. So go ahead and stop the video and attempt this, and then we'll give you the answers. Okay, we're back now. So we have rusting iron. So we have to think, are we going to get a new substance? And the answer is yes, we are going to get something new. So because of that, this is a chemical change. Dissolving in water. So if I took some sugar and put it in water, is that something new that I get? And the answer is no. I can evaporate the water out and that sugar will be left. And so this is just a physical change. Dissolving is just a physical change. Burning a log, will I get a new product? And yes, I will get ashes and smoke and probably some gases released that are really smelly. So this is a chemical change. Melting ice, this is a phase change. So I still have H2O. I just went from frozen H2O to liquid H2O. And grinding spices. So again, do we have something new or is this just something that we can still say the same name? So I would start with my whole spices. At the end, I would have smaller spices. So this is just a physical change. So just to reiterate, physical changes, generally they can be reversed. Obviously, if that last example with the grinding of the spices, you're not going to be able to get whole spices back. But Physical changes, if it's a phase change, usually that can be reversed. Chemical changes, because you're making something new, generally it's not reversible. You could do a complicated chemical chain reaction to try to get back to what you started with, but it's going to be really complicated. So again, chemical changes, because you've made something new, it's permanent.